Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Zach.
We are looking at Dragon Age Inquisition. Did you play this game?
I never did. You know what?
You're about to be in this game.
Oh, you're gonna name? Oh, did you make me? He has a
Aaron.
beard.
Yeah, so I tried to make him look a little bit like you without doing too much effort. I basically used all the preset stuff and just made him look like you based on the few presets there were. And it doesn't really look like you at all, so.
Well, he's strikingly handsome, like I am. Oh, he appears to have died.
Yeah, so this game came out in 2014. It was like almost exactly a year after the PS4 launched. And so I played through like the first hour, I guess, and so I chopped out a whole bunch of it. So it's going to jump around a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was trying to cut it down to like 20 minutes, basically.
This guy looks just like me.
Well, he's got his fingernails look like he's got some nail polish, which is probably not your style.
I don't know.
Anyway, this is like BioWare's fantasy RPG. Like Mass Effect is their sci-fi one. This is the fantasy one. You can play as a human, a dwarf, an elf, or a Canary. And then,
what is a Canary?
A Canary is like unique to Dragon Age. It's like this big, tall, like they have horns coming out of their head. I should have picked Canary, but I was trying to make you, so I picked human. And then after you like select what race you want to play as, you can choose to be either a warrior, a mage, or a rogue. And then within those, there's like specializations. So you can be like a two-handed warrior, or like a sword and shield warrior, or like a dual blade rogue, or like a bow and arrow rogue.
So what happens now?
Do you remember what happened?
And there is like choices and it's not really like a morality system, but there is sort of your decisions, people either like them or dislike them, and so it affects how close you can become with them.
There's romance options in this, right?
There are, yeah. So my first playthrough in this game, I romanced Cassandra, which is the person who's on screen right now.
Did you beat it when you played it?
I did. So I beat it on PS4. This is the PC version.
Oh.
It's not exactly an open world game. There are like many lands that you can go to, and then they're like smaller open world areas that you can explore.
Seems like there's some green stuff going on.
So the part of Aaron will be played by Crispin Glover. And somehow, I think it looks a little bit like Crispin Glover. I don't know why.
I could see that.
So yeah, what happened in this story is that there was like this civil war between mages and Templars, and so there was this.
Templars.
Yeah, Templars. So there was this peace conference called by Divine Justinia, which is, I don't know, she has some role in like their government, I guess. But there's this big explosion that basically killed her and a whole bunch of other people, and you survived the blast. But you lost your memory because you got hit by the blast pretty hard, so you don't really know what's going on.
Classic.
And yeah, so the blast opened this rift, or it's a breach. So it's kind of like Into the Breach, but out of the breach.
Oh, callback.
Yeah. So the breach is basically like this tear in the boundary between the physical world and the spirit world.
Is that why there were all those bugs early on?
Yeah, so there's all these like weird creatures, and there's like demons and ghosts and stuff like that.
Cassandra approves of whatever I just said.
Yeah, so if you kind of get to know them just based on talking to them, so you know what they value. So in those dialogue options, if you pick the thing that you know they're going to respond well to, you can kind of build your relationship that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What is the combat system in this like? Because like I enjoyed the combat in Mass Effect. This is BioWare, right?
yes, you'll see it here coming up in a little bit. It's not quite as good as that. I mean, that was, especially with like Mass Effect 3, they made it pretty good as far as the shooting goes. But this is more like melee combat. There are mages and archers as well, but we're playing a melee character. It's a little more, I want to say, MMO-like.
Well, so and usually what I'm used to in an RPG is just like any weapon I find, I can pick up, and maybe I'm not like adept at that weapon, but maybe I can become adept at that weapon. But what I think I'm hearing is that like if you are a sword and shield mage or a sword and shield fighter, that's like what you are. Is that correct to say?
So if you are a warrior, you can pick up weapons, and there's different skill trees, which you'll see in a little bit. Like you can have weapons that are the two-handed type of sword or the regular sword and shield, and you can sort of build into that skill tree. And whichever way you build most, that's what you're going to be best at. So it's better to pick one skill tree and go with it instead of trying to do both.
So it's not like a rock, paper, scissors kind of game where like you need to use spears on enemies with long reach or axes on enemies that need to have like breaking tactics.
No, it's not really that, because you can do just fine with whichever style you choose. I'm
remembering something about this. This is the game where you are constantly covered in blood, right?
That could describe many games.
Well, I feel like when this came out, I saw a bunch of like screenshots of people in dialogue options, but they had just gotten done with battle, so their player model was like covered in blood. Is that accurate?
I mean, that happens a fair amount of the time. I'm pretty sure all the dialogue in this like first hour of gameplay, I'm covered in blood. So yeah, that's probably true. So you meet some new characters here, but I like skip over it because it would have taken too long. But
can you be a warrior that uses bows, or do you have to be a rogue?
You'd have to be a rogue.
So you don't really have any range as a warrior.
You'll get some abilities that kind of help you deal with enemies that are far away. Like there's one move where you can like charge at them, so you sort of run at them, so you can close the gap pretty quickly.
Kind of like a Vanguard in Mass Effect.
And if you'll see on the top left that you have all your squad mates there, this is the tactical camera. So there's two, I guess, different ways you can approach combat. One is you just run in and you use your attacks, you use your special abilities, and you do your regular attacks. Or you can do this, where you basically stop time, and down in the bottom there's that little hourglass, so you can like sort of slowly, frame by frame, advance time through this fight. And
so you are in effect making it turn-based, but it's not actually turn-based?
Kind of, yeah. So like right now I'm assigning different attacks for each of my squad mates. Like you can tell I'm telling the dwarf guy to go over there and start attacking that green ghost guy with his bow. And I'm queuing up other attacks for everybody else as well.
Would you classify this as fun?
It actually is, because once you get like a whole bunch of abilities, it's probably a more efficient way of doing battle. I found it, especially when you're taking on like a dragon or like there's a bunch of higher rank enemies that you're fighting, you can die pretty quickly if you are not careful, if you're not like paying attention to what your squad mates are doing. So the tactical mode actually becomes a much more efficient way of doing battle. In fact, every time I battled a dragon in this game, I switched to the tactical camera.
But you can just run in and be just yourself. Right?
Yeah, so I swapped out of it right there, and I've gone back to just the regular attack mode.
Does it have Mass Effect style stuff where, like, if you're playing with a controller, you can just, like, hit a direction on the D-pad and that's assigned to one of your other character's abilities?
I don't remember. I don't think you need to, because you can actually physically switch over to one of your other squad mates and play as them.
Oh.
So that's a little bit a different thing between Mass Effect and Dragon Age. In Dragon Age, you can actually play as everyone in your party if you wanted to. So, like, if you got tired of playing the two-handed warrior, you could switch over to, the archer guy there and use the bow for a while.
What happens if somebody dies?
You can revive them. In
What
fact,
happens if you? What if the main character dies?
You'll see. So yeah, you use that thing in your hand that you don't really know what it is yet to close rifts. And here's some of the skill trees. So the sword and shield, that's the first skill tree, but because we're a warrior, I'm doing the two-handed one. So I'm going to skip that sword and shield one altogether. And then these are like the class or specialization skill trees. So yeah, and you have like on PC you have 8 slots that you can like assign special skills or abilities to. On console, I think it's less because you have fewer buttons.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
One of the problems I think with this game is like side quests and stuff, though, because especially early on, you're given like a ton of like random little side quests that aren't all that interesting, and they're kind of grindy. And I remember articles being released in the like week or two after the game came out that were like, you should just leave the first area if you're there. Like, just keep doing the main story. Don't feel like you should complete the entire area at once, because it's pretty easy to get bogged down in that stuff, and it's not all that interesting.
How was this reviewed, speaking of articles post-launch?
It was actually reviewed really, really well. So I think it got like 9s and 10s actually from most places. I think it won some Game of the Year awards that year.
So this was pre-everyone hating BioWare.
I mean, some people hated BioWare because of the ending of Mass Effect 3 already.
I did. You're talking about me, Zach.
Yeah, you're one of them. So, but yeah, it definitely intensified because of Andromeda, which happened last year.
They have any other they have tons of other franchises, don't they? Or is it just...
I mean, these are the two main ones. They're obviously working on Anthem now. But...
Oh, yeah, Anthem.
But yeah, I think in the years after this game came out, it's become popular to sort of bash this game a little bit.
Interesting. I feel like I knew that.
Which I think it's a little unjust. Like, the side quests, like I said, aren't great some of the time, but like the characters are good and the main story's fun. So
look at how covered in blood you are.
I mean, successful battle.
I feel like they just use oh. You know what this also is reminiscent of is the most recent Dungeons and Dragons. What's it called? World of Warcraft expansion.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I can't remember which one it was, but I watched these guys play through it, and there was a lot of like green fire involved.
Now you're asking me what I think.
That's a popular fantasy thing, I think.
Can you be an elf?
You can, yeah. So like
Now-
right now, there's you like a choice thing that you would have to make. Like, do you want to go charge in with the soldiers, which is what Cassandra wants you to do, or do you want to go take the mountain path and try to save the agents that went up there? And that's what one of the other people want you to do. So you kind of see some of the decision making, but I skip over what you actually do because you just go up there and you take out another rift basically. And so I skip to the part where it's after you've gone down the other side of the mountain and you've gotten to like the main events of this mission.
Oh man, what is that terrible imp in the back? What is all this?
This is where the blast happened, and so everybody died, basically. This is Ground Zero.
Is that a 9/11 reference?
I think it's just like when there's some sort of big event, that's what they call Ground Zero.
Wow. Can you be a bard? Oh, that's a crossbow. That's not a lute.
Yeah.
You're here.
Who's this lady?
So that's she becomes one of your advisors. She's like the stealth rogue person that like gives you all these secrets. Give it to Stink Eye. Crispin Glover did not like the look of that green thing.
Is this like in your top 5 games of all time, would you say? I remember you playing this a lot back in the day.
I did. I played a lot of it when it came out, but it was also like one of the first games I had for PS4. So I ended up putting a lot of time into it. It actually had a pretty fun multiplayer mode as well, which is it was more of like a cooperative thing. It was like a dungeon crawler sort of thing.
Oh, so you play with others?
Yeah. So you would team up with like 4 random people online, and you would just go around taking out enemies, and you'd get new characters you could play as, and you'd work on upgrading weapons and stuff like that.
Wait a minute. Can you play the main game cooperatively, a la like Divinity Original Sin?
No, that would have been really cool though.
That would have been awesome.
I probably would have tried really hard to convince you to get it if that had been the case.
Are they making another Dragon Age?
They're currently working on one, but it's like kind of on the back burner. They're in the really beginning phases of that.
They're probably all focusing on Anthem.
Yeah, well, so BioWare Edmonton is the developer that made like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, and then they made the smaller studio in Montreal that was supposed to help them with like DLC and other random projects, and then they gave that team Andromeda, and they messed it up obviously. So that studio is closed down. So now everyone's just working on Anthem right now.
Person is not looking great. Is that the Dark Lord?
That is Corypheus. He's the bad guy.
Oh no!
He's like the main villain.
Do you kill him at the end of the game?
Yeah, it's like this big battle against him at the end.
You can't solo this game, can you? Like, just be like, I don't want any partners, and just like go complete stealth. Is that a possible?
I don't know. I never even thought to try that. Because part of the fun is actually running around with your people.
This rift is not sealed, but it is closed, albeit temporarily. I believe
Like
the
this guy's
Butcher mark,
code.
the rift can be opened. And then
So the first time I played it through, I was a mage.
However, opening the
And then I
rift will
started a second playthrough as a two-handed warrior. And I preferred that playstyle a lot more, which is why I made you a two-handed warrior.
Are there orcs?
No, but the Canari are somewhat similar to orcs. What's gonna come out? What's gonna
Is it a
happen?
dragon? Wait, so in every how many Dragon Age games have there been?
3?
Do they all involve dragons?
I assume. I haven't played the first 2, actually. He's a big
a
one. You're
Canari?
gonna have to take him down.
That's a Canary.
No, that's a Pride Demon.
Pride Demon.
Yeah, and this fight takes a little while, and it's kind of a rough fight. So because it's really early on, and you don't have a lot of skills yet, and I didn't remember the process of taking him down, so I sped this up a little bit. So you will see what happens when some of the teammates die, because I'm pretty sure I almost failed this. I was also having problems trying to close the rift or do that thing where you have to go up to the rift and wave your hand at it, basically. Because I think the PC controls are not great.
It's more built because it was built for PS4, right?
Yeah, it was definitely built for consoles. There were problems with the PC version when it came out.
His health doesn't appear to be going down.
What's that?
I'm looking at his health doesn't really seem to be going down.
Yeah, so it took me much longer to remember that I needed to actually go mess with the rift rather than just attack him. Because you have to like hit the rift and that'll make him fall down or whatever, and it'll take his little shield away.
Oh yeah, you're like.
So now you can go hit him. So if you end up playing this, don't do what I did.
There's a lot on the screen. This is very intimidating. I feel like, would you say the learning curve is steep?
Maybe. It's not as bad as it looks, I don't think. Like, once you actually get into it, because I skipped over a lot of, like, the early game fights where you're just, like, taking on a couple of little bad guys. That does a decent job of teaching you how to fight. Like, right now, I have 3 abilities. I have, like, the main ability, which is, like, this big, heavy, like, hammer hit that knocks people down. So you can kind of stop people from advancing with that. And then the other attack I have builds guard. So you'll see on the upper left, right now I don't have any.
Oh, no, you're dead.
You can always revive them. So now I'm playing as the other dude, but I think I died pretty quick as him. So it came down to the wire. But yeah, it's basically you build up like shields and stuff like that. So you have ways of surviving. You're alive.
Best and worst, Zach. Best and worst things about this game.
Well, from the hour I played on PC, the PC controls are the worst. The best thing is probably like BioWare does a good job with like characters and story and stuff like that. But you should play it.
No.
Man. Anyway, this has been Dragon Age.